First off, let me just say that this film is so bad that it's good, and I mean that. It's pretty rare to find one like this. I'm always looking for films like this, and wow, I had no idea this was out there. I don't know how I came across it. It was just happenstance that I saw this pop up on satellite TV, and wow, I'm glad I actually took a second look at it. It is 1993's Doppelganger, starring Drew Barrymore and a whole host of forgettable people that I never saw again. I don't think I ever heard of this before. I certainly didn't see it back in 93. I don't know who did. I never met anybody that mentioned this film. Like I just said, I didn't know it existed. It is Drew Barrymore in a movie so bad that you can laugh out loud at it. It takes itself 100% seriously, and Drew Barrymore expects you to take her serious in this film, and she hasn't decided, I guess at this point in her career, she had not decided whether she was supposed to be a sex symbol or whether she was supposed to be just, you know, that child actor that was just one of the, I don't know, any number of child actors that became likable characters. They could do romantic comedies, etc. Well, in this one, she was still experimenting with the idea that she was a sex symbol and she was going to be a bad girl. She was going to do topless nude scenes. And it's all in this film. And this film is all over the place and laugh out loud funny from the first scene all the way to the end. It is goofy and stupid, and it almost throws me back to a really low budget 1980s type film. But it is a 1993 production. It is supposed to take place in the 90s. The film characters tell you it's the 90s. There are some jokes alluding to that. And yet a lot of this film, the sets are pulled out of the 1980s. They're very recognizable sets around Los Angeles that you've seen in the movies for decades. They're where you would go to film something in a very low budget way. You've seen the apartment complex in this film dressed up in many different TV shows and films. And I don't live in Los Angeles, but I'm sure people that live there know where this is. They've seen it so many times. It takes you back to the 80s, though, because although it's set in the 90s, everything in the interior sets is props that belong in a 1983 film. Everything from appliances to furniture to decorations are straight up out of something from a 1983 low-budget production. I don't know why. Maybe it's all they could find in the warehouse at the studio to decorate the sets with. But yeah, you feel like you're in 1983, but this is in the 90s. It has a 24% on the audience score with 3,155 audience reviews. So obviously, like myself, most of the public doesn't know this exists. It's too bad because they should know this exists, because you go into this thing even sober, you're going to find a lot of places to laugh out loud at this. You just keep watching it to find out how bad and crazy it's going to get. And I can only imagine, you know, I might actually try to watch this again after a couple of beers if I ever have the time, because it is one of those films that you might find hysterically roll on the floor funny if you're slightly buzzed. But the film expects you to take everything that happens 100% seriously. As you can see, there are no critics' reviews on this. I don't know why, because you would think a critic would have fun just ripping this to pieces, just shitting on it because it deserves it. The 24% audience score is completely fair. Even if it had 100,000 reviews, I can't imagine it would be any higher. It might even sink down to the single digits. It's that bad. Let's get right to the audience reviews, and I've got quite a lot of stuff to talk about. It's just fun talking about this thing. 2.5 stars, September 15, 2014. Well, take a look at your first one from October of 2016. That means the latest audience review on this thing is from more than 3 years ago, telling you how much forgotten this thing is. But the first one that's in English is 2.5 stars from more than 5 years ago. Not a great movie, but an enjoyably weird movie. Naive young screenwriter George Newbern rents half of his apartment to Miss Barrymore, who slowly reveals that she probably has a magical evil twin. And maybe her brother does too, and maybe the evil twins murder people, Or maybe Drew and her brother are just crazy. Maybe George has wild sex with Drew, or maybe it was her magical twin. Why does Drew's shower water turn to blood? Who cares? Because boobs. Just when everything... Oh my gosh. This reviewer, I'm not going to go along with more than a paragraph of any review. I never do. But this reviewer, like, he probably had a hard time discovering where to start on his review. From the top of my list, let's just say, well, let's just give you a quick synopsis. Drew Barrymore, she comes to Los Angeles after, I guess, being away in New York or on the East Coast. She comes to Los Angeles to, I guess, she inherited family property, and her brother is in Los Angeles, confined to a mental institution, and the film reveals that she actually grew up in Los Angeles, but she's been away for most of her life. Now she returns to Los Angeles in a taxi, and she shows up to this complete stranger's want ad for a roommate for $400 a month. Now, she finds out that what was advertised as a two-bedroom apartment is actually just a one-bedroom apartment with one bathroom in that one bedroom. And when she finds that out, what does she do? She says, that's fine. And she moves in with this total stranger and agrees to pay him $400-something a month in rent. And he says he'll just sleep on the couch, and he doesn't use the bedroom, and he only has a razor and his toothbrush in the bathroom, so it's pretty much her bathroom, right? So she agrees to that and moves in and unpacks her music box from her suitcase and whatever small amount of clothes she has and proceeds to just play house with this complete stranger. And she has sex with him on the dirty kitchen floor at one part, and she takes a shower at another scene, and the shower turns into blood, and she's bathing in the bloody shower water and she's caressing her breasts, and it's completely hysterically ridiculous the way all this unfolds. Other stuff happens between these particular scenes, but you don't know if she has like an evil magical twin or somebody stalking her that looks like her, or it's all in her mind and she just has a split personality. You're kind of teased with several possibilities that this is the mystery to figure out what's really going on. And the plot gets so insane and crazy, and you have Drew Barrymore going to her childhood home, and when she does, it's like this haunted house that's in the middle of a suburb of Los Angeles, and when you go on the property, all of a sudden, it was bright daylight of any time of day, Los Angeles, you know, it could be spring, summer, it doesn't matter. You're in LA and the sun is shining and the weather's perfect and calm. But when you go onto this mansion in the middle of LA, all of a sudden, like, there's thunder sounding and it becomes windy and stormy and dark, and it's like you're in a haunted house all of a sudden. And then when you leave the haunted house, you're back in sunny LA again. And you're wondering, what does this haunted house thing have to do with the rest of the stuff going on with the split character personality and all this other stuff? And there's so much weird stuff thrown together as this plot goes along. And this writer, he's in love with Drew Barrymore, and he has sex with her, but he doesn't know if it's her or her doppelganger or her split personality that he's occasionally having sex with. And it's laugh out loud funny at how stupid it all is. And the plot actually features a nun character played by Sally Kellerman, who is known for a lot of things and has seen better days even by 1993. And she is actually a nun who works as a phone sex worker at the same time that she's a nun, working at this call center for phone sex workers. It is completely bizarre. Let's move on. I don't even know where to start with this. You know, I tried to do a synopsis and I tried to explain some of it, but it gets so weird me explaining it that when I hear myself talking about it, I just don't know where I should give you more detail and where I should just move along. So I'm just going to move along with the audience reviews here. And we have a 2-star from September 8, 2013, 6 years back in time. Bad B-grade horror, terrible film but still entertaining, hilarious to see the bad effects. Drew, very early career. Yeah, the bad effects are really bad, and at the final act of this movie, at the end, this movie turns from what I described before into some combination of John Carpenter's The Thing mixed with aliens and demons at the same time, plus the split personality thing, plus the brother that could be a killer too, and the dad could be the dad that supposedly died many years before. He could be back from the grave as a demon. But yeah, at the end, this turns into a John Carpenter effect type thing. Literally, it does. And then a demon thing right after that, an alien slash demon thing. I don't know. There's no message here. It's just over the top crazy. And if you're like on your 6th beer at the end of this, wow, you're going to be entertained. I promise you that. But start on your 1st beer before you start the movie. Make sure you're on your 6th beer or you're into the 12-pack by the time you get to the final scene of this movie. You're going to know what I'm talking about. But let's move on. May 23rd, 2013. 3 stars. Holly Gooding, Drew Barrymore, arrives in Los Angeles hoping to escape her nightmare. She is being stalked by a creature that looks and talks just like her, a creature that brutally stabbed her mother to death. But this creature is not her. It is her doppelganger, her evil alter ego, whose only emotion is hate and whose only desire is to destroy her. Then she meets the man of her dreams, but he has fallen in love with Holly, or her doppelganger. Let's just say the movie starts out in New York, and Drew Barrymore's character, she's in a penthouse apartment or a high-rise apartment, and she's up against a wall having some kind of simulated sex with some older guy that looks like old enough to be her dad, and she's having an orgasm, and he's rubbing her legs. And while she's having an orgasm, and while she has an orgasm at other parts of this movie, she's always thinking about this alien demon looking face that's looking at her, and it's all slimy while she's having an orgasm. And I don't know what that has to do with anything, but that's how it starts. This movie does. And it starts with, I guess, her doppelganger character killing her mother in New York. And her mother, I don't know who plays her mother, but the actress is so bad. She's like reading her lines, that type of bad. And she dies. Her body falls through a glass coffee table. And Drew Barrymore shuffles across the room holding a chef's knife and just stabs her repeatedly with the chef's knife. And it's straight up laugh out loud funny. I laughed during the whole thing. It was so stupid and funny. But the movie wanted you to take this serious. This was supposed to be scary and deadly serious. And I was laughing the whole way how dumb it all was. And let me mention the nun character by Sally Kellerman's nun character. She's like a phone sex worker, and I guess she's supposed to know something about what's going on in Drew Barrymore's head with the split personality. And she gives some psychological mumbo jumbo. And I don't know. I even lost my train of thought. I had something to bring to the table on that thought, and I just completely... Let's just move on. 2.5 stars, September 2nd, 2012. We are actually, we're 8 years, almost 8 years, 7 years plus back in time. 2.5 stars. This was certainly a departure from the later Avi Neshers. Alas, the movie didn't manage to make the leap from trashy to trashy fun, plus the special effects really sucked. Enjoyed watching the feisty Elizabeth more than Mrs. Barrymore's character, though Drew Barrymore did look somewhat hot here. Yeah, I will say I agree. You know, Drew Barrymore's topless scenes looked really great. They looked so good, I thought maybe they used a body double, but no, it was her. It's just that they did a good job of making her look like really good in the shower. 1 star, it's all capitals, from February of 2012, so it must be really important. I'm going to read it. I do not ordinarily rate movies, but feel it is my civic duty to warn all others that you will never get the 1 hour and 45 minutes of your life you spent watching this movie back. Once I started watching this movie, it was like a terrible car wreck on the road that I could not take my eyes off. And just when I thought things could not get worse, the final scenes, which were meant to be meaningful and perhaps horrifying, yeah, the final scenes like turned this movie into 3 different types of movies, all in the span of about 2 or 3 minutes. It was a complete disastrous train wreck, and I was laughing throughout. And it was very much like John Carpenter's The Thing. 3 stars. January of 2012. A chilling idea with the ideal actress, but the film as a whole needs some serious help. Yeah, that's an understatement. 2 stars. September of 2011. LOL, I love you, Drew, but seriously, what the fuck? Yeah, she must have been very desperate at this point in time. I don't remember her from back in the early 90s. I remember seeing in the news that she was strung out on drugs, like she was a child actor. At the part that she did a performance in one of Stephen King's movies, I believe it was Cat's Eye. She was the little girl character, and it was said at that time that she had a cocaine problem as a child. And then she showed up again in the 90s, and of course we saw her in the Charlie Angels and whatnot. But this 93 film, it's like I guess she was in a transition period where she didn't know if she was supposed to be sexy or what she was, and who knows, maybe she was back on the cocaine, I don't know, but it's very much a career destroyer, and this film is very much forgotten, and so I think it's been forgotten about, and that's how she survived it. If this film hadn't been forgotten about, I can only imagine it would have ended her, I'm sure. September 28, 2011. LOL, yeah, I read that one. August 2011. They're actually giving it 3.5 stars, and they're saying Drew Barrymore's best performance. It has to be tongue-in-cheek, or they're just enjoying the shower scene. Where she's caressing her bloody breasts. 1 star, April 25, 2011. This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and yet fairly enjoyable. Doppelganger is unintentionally hilarious. Yes, it is. It's so laugh-out-loud funny. You've got a scene in which the main character, he's a forgettable actor, I don't know who he is. He goes on a foot chase. He leaves his car in a bad part of LA and goes on a foot chase down into the same storm drain system you've seen a million times before. In fact, you've seen this same exact entrance to the storm drain system a million times before. I recognized it. And the whole time he's on a foot chase, he's carrying around his car stereo in his under his left arm like a book. Because back then, their removable car stereos were a big thing back in the 90s to prevent theft. You would take your whole car stereo, it would just slide right out of the dash, and you could take it with you. And then later on, they developed removable face plates on stereos where you could just take the face plate with you in your pocket. And supposedly the thieves wouldn't want to steal it because it wouldn't be worth anything without the face plate. But back in 93, you still had these removable car stereos. So the whole damn car stereo, the size of a big book, would come out. And this guy's walking around, carrying it around. And then at one point when he's in the storm drains, he finally has to escape. He's on a foot chase, and he's being chased by this psychopath character. And he has to squeeze between a couple of chain link fence gates that aren't really locked, and you can tell they're not locked. They're just kind of put together with this stupid rusted piece of metal that he could have easily opened, but he doesn't, and it's unintentionally funny. And he squeezes through these 2 gates, and when he does, he has to desperately chuck his car stereo away, and it crashes on the concrete, and it's just laugh out loud funny and so desperately stupid at the same time. Everything about it is stupid. And you can actually look at the chain link fence and see that it wasn't really locked. It was just like temporarily fastened together for the sake of looking like it was locked. And you're just laughing the whole time. 1.5 stars, February 13, 2011. An odd movie. The description called it a sci-fi. Well, it is more of a suspense movie with about a minute of sci-fi at the end. Frankly, it would have been much better to have been a psycho suspense all the way through. If you were a Drew Barrymore fan, you get to see a lot of her. Though her acting was marginal, I wouldn't recommend this movie. Yeah, you're thinking it's a psychological thriller horror type thing, and then at the end, plot spoilers, Drew Barrymore's laying on a sofa, semi-nude, And she like transforms into this grotesque demonic alien creature that then splits in half, John Carpenter the Thing style, all gross and slimy. And then it makes two alien creatures, and then one alien creature looks at the other and swats the other away and knocks it unconscious. And then that alien creature actually what does that alien creature do? That alien creature actually becomes more of a demon, and an earthquake starts an earthquake and does all this nonsense. And then eventually these alien slimy creatures merge back together and turn back into Drew Barrymore laying on the sofa again. And oh, I forgot to mention, at one part, Drew Barrymore transforms into a giant worm creature before she turns into the alien slimy demon creatures. And I guess that's why they're calling it sci-fi. She's an alien slimy demon at the end, or a pair of them, and then I don't even know what to make of it. It was like a special effects guy he got laid off from a John Carpenter movie. He took over at the last part and just wanted to make a demonstration of how good he was, and took over the film, and that's how the film went on. And yeah, I could see why you would call it a sci-fi because of that just last little bit at the end. And it's completely comes out of nowhere. Like, you're not expecting it, and if you're like into your sixth beer of the six-pack, you're just going to be laughing hysterically when you watch it going, what the fuck? What the fuck? Like, it's one of those. 3 stars, September 6, 2010. We are 9 years and a couple of months ago. 9 years and 3 months ago. An okay thriller starring Drew Barrymore, who does a fine job, but the movie itself needs some work. Really? It needs some work. Okay. 2 stars, June 5th, 2010. A movie that has the distinction of having some of the worst dialogue you will ever hear. Drew Barrymore starred in this mess in that awkward time between E.T. and when her adult career really took off in the mid-1990s. Not really worth watching unless you are a true blue Barrymore fan or just love mediocrity. Or, again, I'll say it, if you want to find something so bad that it's good, that you can laugh at how bad it is, watch this film. Guaranteed you will find it interesting. 1 star, June 23rd, 2009. More than 10 years ago. I don't remember enough to say anything more. I doubt that. I think you remember how bad this was. 1 star. The ending ruined it. Not one of Drew's best by far. Again, so understated. 0.5 star. Drew at her very worst. The storyline is not that interesting and very shallow. It starts a bit slow, then starts evolving into a big pile of mess. I wouldn't advise fans of the legendary Drew Barrymore to watch this awful film. You know, I don't think I ever gave it a star rating. Again, I'll say also 0.5 star. You just see weird stuff in this film. Like, for example, there's a writer character that's in love with Drew, and he's got like this ex of his that's also a script writer, screenwriter, or whatever. They do their work on typewriters despite the fact that it's 1993. Again, I mentioned this. It's like everything's out of the 80s, but it's set in the 90s. And they go to this weird cafe that's really crowded. It's so crowded you can barely walk through the little tables. And all these writers from Hollywood sit there writing away on their stupid scripts. And I guess this is before Starbucks became popular. And this is like the cheap version of Starbucks from back in the day. And they're all sitting there with pen and pencils and papers and notepads, working on their screenplays, and once in a while some big Hollywood producer walks in there and has a meeting with somebody, and it's so stupid, and the dialogue is so stupid, and the movie focuses so much on dialogue that's not between the main characters. Like, let's say the scene features 1 or 2 characters sitting there. The actual sound you'll get to hear conversations from people in the background in every scene. You're hearing a lot of background characters that aren't the focus of the scene talking, and their dialogue's very stilted and stupid and fake and funny and laugh out loud at the same time. And it's almost like it's meant to be funny like that, but it's not. It's still expecting it to be serious, and I don't know what they were thinking. Whoever directed this thought it would be more realistic to have like all the characters in the background, all the background conversations, instead of those conversations being like some kind of just background buzz. No, it's distinct actual conversations at nearby tables, to people talking about their worthless screenplays and stuff, and it's just laugh out loud, bad, funny at the same time. Let's move on. 5 stars, no. 2 stars, love Drew, but this movie is pretty lame, okay. 3 stars, I don't mind giving it a 3 star on overall. Drew carries the film to the end. She looks at her best in this movie. Again, this must just be from people that wanted to see her do nude scenes. They might be the only nude scenes in a movie she's ever done, to my knowledge. But okay, they looked good. She looked good doing them. I'll give her that. 2.5 stars, November 28, 2008. We're now 11 years back in time plus. Not in line to win any awards of any kind, but not a horrible movie. Plot holes are everywhere, and the logic is very low, so don't expect much from this bad movie. Wow, you're giving it way too much credit. I'm sorry, but you're wrong. It's so bad it's good. Plot holes are the least of the problems. You know, I have a list. I'm not sure the list means anything because of how bad it all is. Let's just say, yeah, 1993 looks more like 1983 in every way, even the hairstyles on a lot of the characters. Yeah, there's creepy, melodramatic horror music that plays when you visit certain places, and thunderstorm stuff going on in the background, despite it's being sunny Los Angeles. You would think it's a parody or something, but it's not. It's supposed to be serious. This was supposed to be serious. Yep, there's a lot of spinning footage. Like, it's trying to do like a Blair Witch type of thing. Like I mentioned before, every time Drew Barrymore has some kind of orgasm, she sees this demon slimy character looking at her. But she also has like flashbacks of, like, if you took a video camera and pointed it up in a redwood forest and just spun it around, like a Blair Witch type of effect, where there's just really tall pine trees spinning around for no reason. It doesn't have to do with anything. And then that transitions to this demon slimy character. It's kind of trying to channel Blair Witch. That's the impression I got of it. And it's also laugh out loud funny, especially if you've been drinking, I would imagine. Let's see. There's an FBI agent character that's obviously not an FBI agent. And I guess the actor that played this FBI agent that interrogates the main character in this really small room, this small apartment room, I guess his voice was really bad in some way, so they dubbed over everything, and you see these two characters talking from a few feet away at a distance, and you just straight up can tell that the dialogue doesn't match the mouth moving, and it goes on like this for over a minute or two, and they had a voice actor dub his voice over the top of this little scrawny looking FBI agent that never shows his badge, who turns out later to just be some peeping Tom in a nearby apartment that was posing as an FBI agent. There's so much weird stuff going on here. The movie's trying to tell you there's all these subplots going along, but every one of them turns out to be nothing. It's just thrown in there to be weird. And the bad voice dubbing, it's laugh out loud funny. You're going to laugh out loud at this when you see that it's just 1 or 2 minutes of dialogue dubbed over, straight up over another character, where you can just visibly see their mouth doesn't match it at all. Let's see, there's a lot of product placement in this, particularly Diet Coke. I don't know if Diet Coke was really a big sponsor of this, but it's in a lot of different scenes, people drinking Diet Coke and putting the cans conspicuously in view of the camera, etc. Yep, the phone, okay, Sally Kellerman, she's been in a lot of movies going back into the 1960s and probably maybe even into the 50s. I don't know. I can't remember, but certainly in the 1960s. She was in the original Star Trek, for example. She's been in a lot of things over the years. I don't even know if she's still alive, but in this, she was already an old lady. She plays a nun, like a nun that's also a phone sex worker. Well, she's sitting at her desk as a phone sex worker and having all this dialogue with the main character. And you can just see her reading the script off her desk. And not only do you see her reading her lines off the desk, her eyes are looking down at the script while she's reading it, and the camera actually shows you the script, and you can see the lines of dialogue written on the sheet of paper, and it's a script dialogue telling her what to read. And the camera shows you this multiple times, and she makes no attempt to look at the camera or the character. She is just looking continuously at the script while she reads it off. And the movie's not doing this in a way to make you laugh, but it is laugh out loud stupid. It's just, I'm surprised no reviewers have brought this up. Yeah, I mentioned the protagonist carrying around his stereo under one arm while he's having a chase scene. Yeah, and Drew Barrymore turning into a worm, then an alien and a monster and all this different stuff at the end. Let's finish off these rotten reviews. 2 stars, maybe I would like it better now. That's from 2008. Well, if you get drunk, I don't know about 2008, but in 2020, get drunk and watch this. You'll love it. 3 stars, July 14, 2008. Gotta love 90s Drew Barrymore. It's pretty bizarre stuff, but it never gets so out there that it's intolerable. The ending was beyond weird, but it sticks with the over-the-top surreal nature of the film and actually works pretty well. Did I mention Drew Barrymore is in this film? Again, Drew Barrymore fanboys, and you got to see her breasts. Congratulations. Half a star, July 3rd, 2008. Now even I say this is one of the worst films ever made, and I am a huge Drew Barrymore fan. Skip it. No, I disagree. Don't skip this film. Watch this film if you get the chance. Watch it for free, but make sure that you're already into the 6-pack, or you've got a big bottle of wine or something, because you're going to find this hysterically bad, hysterically laugh out loud bad. It is definitely one of those so bad it's good films. It's in a class of its own, and I'm going to see you on the next episode of Rotten Reviews.